Hey, welcome in. Well, we've got another in our series on Victor Davis Hanson articles today because Victor Davis Hanson writes a lot more articles than he does video interviews, and you can get a little bit deeper into his thoughts by looking at his articles. And this is an ongoing series that I do here on Radio Baloney. You can check out the Victor Davis Hanson playlist on the channel if you want to see more. Anyway, we've got an article here from Victor Davis Hanson. Trump and 2020. 5 reasons why reelection is looking better and better. So let's get straight into it. It starts out, Donald Trump has at least 5 strong historical arguments for his reelection. 1, he is an incumbent. Incumbent presidents have won 14 of 19 reelection bids since 1900. So that is something that's strongly in his favor. Although there are unique things about his president, particularly in how, the mainstream media has always been left. It's always favored Democrats for as long as I can remember. But it's really just gone into overdrive right now. And it's just uncritically just publishing just straight up lies. Now there's the Trump said that the coronavirus is a hoax thing, which they have resources. They can check these things out. You can check it out at home in 5 minutes or in 5 seconds and find out he's not saying the coronavirus is a hoax. He's saying that the Democrats' reaction to it, what they're saying about Trump's response to the coronavirus is a hoax. He didn't cut CDC funding. That's one example right there. So, you would have to think that kind of resistance, it does affect his chances, including as an incumbent. But anyway, let's move on. And I will digest this article a bit so that it's not a 4-hour-long video for everyone's sake. Next, 2, the public perception of the economy usually determines any presidential election. As incumbents Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, and Herbert Hoover learned the hard way. Currently, the U.S. is enjoying low inflation, low interest rates, positive economic growth, near record low employment, rising workers' wages, and record gas and oil production. Now, this coronavirus thing, which isn't mentioned in here, could throw a wrench into the works. But anyway, let's keep moving on. Hey, if you could subscribe, like, and share, that really helps me out. Thanks a lot. 3, unpopular optional wars derail incumbent presidencies. 4, scandals can also destroy a presidency, as when Watergate forced the resignation of Richard Nixon. And then 5, the opponent matters. So let's see what Victor Davis Hanson says about all of these 5 points. How does Trump stack up on all such criteria? His poll numbers have climbed steadily since Democrats began impeachment proceedings against him in September 2019. His Gallup approval rating is now 4 points higher than when he was inaugurated in January 2017. Unlike his 2016 bid, Trump now has far more campaign money, the full backing of the Republican Party, a mostly positive record on economic achievement, a lot more campaigning and government experience, and presidential incumbency. And when we're talking about campaign money, he was outspent 2-1 at least in 2016, and that's not going to be the case this time. Although Bloomberg is promising to throw a lot of money around whether he gets the nomination or not. But let's take a look at his poll numbers quickly. And let's compare them to Barack Obama. So where does he stand right now? Well, right now he's at 49%. And at the same time, in Barack Obama's first term, he was at 45. Trump's ahead of where Barack Obama was. And we know how that happened. And we know what happened in his reelection campaign, Barack Obama. He won. So that's looking good. 49. Barack Obama was 45%. Looks pretty good for Trump. Anyway, let's continue. Few economists are predicting a recession in the next 8 months before the election, given the near record employment and increased disposable income from rising wages and lower taxes. Now, this article was just a couple of days ago. And, this does kind of ignore what's happening with coronavirus. It could be, the stock market's tanking, so that's happening. But, any downturn will be because everybody knows it's because of the coronavirus. Supply chains being disrupted. Vendors not having access to stock to sell. A myriad of things, that could happen because of a global pandemic. Well, we don't know how bad it's going to get at this point. And actually, if we just do a quick search here on coronavirus affects the economy, you can see, economy faces a coronavirus challenge as markets swoon. How coronavirus affects the economy. Microsoft warning is a harbinger of coronavirus impact. Coronavirus hits U.S. business activity. How badly will the coronavirus affect the Chinese economy? Markets expected to fall further. How bad could it get? But this, it is a kind of black swan event. It's not, I don't think Trump could be blamed for it. Well, not anybody with a brain. Anyway, let's move on. And this one is dealing with the unpopular optional wars derail incumbent presidencies. And it goes on, will Trump get into a war? China, Iran, and North Korea would benefit if Trump were not reelected. Any of them might seek a confrontation over the summer to provoke Trump into an unpopular pre-election shootout. I personally think the chances of that are very low, especially with this coronavirus stuff going on. Yet Trump's record suggests that he is unlikely to favor preemptory attacks, nation building, or the use of U.S. ground troops in large numbers. So far, he has used mostly air and sea power to accomplish limited objectives without committing U.S. ground troops to the usual nasty places in the Middle East. And as well, this just comes on top of the news of the peace agreement between the U.S. and the Taliban in Afghanistan, and the promise of U.S. troops being gone in 14 months. So that is as opposite to starting unpopular wars halfway across the world as you can get. And I have to believe, the voters are going to be very happy at that news. And the next one was scandals. So scandal-wise, Trump has already been impeached by the House, but was acquitted by the Senate. Special counsel Robert Mueller's team spent 22 months and some $35 million to investigate collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia in the 2016 election, and came up short. And boy, did they ever. We just looked at his approval ratings. It hasn't hurt him. It's helped him. It goes on. Though more Democrats have sought to abort the Trump presidency through impeachment, congressional investigations, lawsuits, and sheer hysteria, the more Trump seems Teflon-like, and his approval ratings go up. Again, we just looked at those numbers. The numbers don't lie. And here we get to the last part. Trump's greatest advantage in 2020, however, may be his most likely opponent, the unapologetic socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. Even mainstream Democrats are terrified of Sanders' redistribution schemes. And let's just take a little look. I want to show you something. And this is just a quick Google search. Will the Democratic Party split? The splitting up of the Democratic Party. Will the Democratic Party split? Democratic leaders willing to risk party damage to stop Bernie Sanders. Big money Democratic donors are trying to stop Bernie Sanders. The Democratic Party is actually 3 parties. The big split emerging in the Democratic Party. The massive split in the Democratic Party. I mean, okay, that tells you something, doesn't it? That tells you that it's unlikely that the Democrats are going to be united against Trump. Those people that are far left socialists that want a Bernie Sanders, they look at like Bloomberg and they just see another Trump. Maybe even worse than Trump to them. The people who would vote for a so-called moderate look at Bernie Sanders' group and they're so turned off by the identity politics and all the postmodernism and the weirdness and the socialism, they're not going to vote. Their consciences won't allow them to vote for Bernie Sanders. So it's really a no-win situation, even no matter who gets the nomination. It's a no-win situation. There's just too many people who just won't take part on the Democratic side, regardless of who gets the nod. But it looks like Bernie's probably going to get it. So let's take a look at some of his positions. Let's see, capital punishment, death penalty, abolish it. I mean, there's some support for that. It's just that when you start bringing out the examples of the kinds of people that will be spared, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Cash bail reform. End it. And this is from Politico, reporting on his stances on different issues. So getting rid of cash bail is working out really badly in New York, where they've done it. Apparently, the people there don't like it very much. Let's see, mandatory minimum sentences reform, eliminate them. Again, this is, people can see what the consequences of this is going to be. You don't even need to see statistics. It's just obvious what the outcomes are going to be. Private prisons, eliminate them. There may be some validity to that. Validity to that. But when you put all this together on criminal justice, Trump said in 2016 he is a law and order candidate. This is pretty obviously not. This is the pro-chaos and crime candidate. None of this would make people feel safer. I guess that's what I'm saying. And there's some good stuff in here. Election security, mandate paper ballots. Yeah, that's a good idea. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's a lot in this. It's not all terrible. It's just when you put it all together, it makes no sense. Here's this one. I don't know why he chose this as a hill to stand on for his campaign. Felons should be allowed to vote while incarcerated. I don't see a lot of popular support for that. It feels extreme to a lot of people. This stuff here, closing down existing nuclear power reactors. Crazy. I thought you wanted to save the environment. I thought you wanted to stop global warming. Well, nuclear power plants are a big part of that. Ban fracking everywhere. Again, that's really extreme and devastating. People understand these things are fantasies. Enough people do. On immigration here, illegal entry, repeal the statute. Make illegally entering the country not illegal. For one thing, in the middle of a pandemic, advocating against border security or arguing against border security, just as a pandemic started, which is going to come. So he'll have to be campaigning on this during a pandemic. That's pretty much the worst time you can do it. I think this is going to become very unpopular. Again, don't support additional wall funding. Again, there's a lot of people who have not really thought about the wall too much who are going to decide the wall's a really good idea, over the next few months. I think that's pretty much inevitable. Again, slash the defense budget. I just think that in times of uncertainty, these are not going to be popular ideas. I really don't think so. Overseas deployments, bring the troops home. Well, Trump's already doing that. A big part of his thing is just increasing taxes on everybody. He admits he has to increase taxes on everybody. Not super popular. So anyway, we're just going to wrap this up now. And as Victor Davis Hanson says here, his opponent is a strong point for Trump. I can't really see a way Trump doesn't win. Maybe this coronavirus thing, depending on how bad it gets, I don't know. That is the kind of unknown, unforeseen thing that's just sprung out of nowhere. And let's close this out, add it all up, and if one looks at 2020 dispassionately and historically, the election appears to be Trump's to lose. And yeah, that's what I think too. And I think these are 5 really good points that clarify a lot. Talking about incumbent advantage, public perception of the economy. He's got that right now. Again, it could change with this whole coronavirus thing, but right now it looks good, and he's unlikely to be blamed for it anyway, just because it's basically a natural disaster, unless it came out of a lab in China, but basically the same thing. 3 unpopular optional wars. Well, again, this peace agreement with the Taliban, has the promise of actually bringing home the troops from Afghanistan, which I think everybody would be in favor of. 4 scandals. I think in the case of Trump, they're just manufactured scandals. Most people have seen through it, even Democrats, and it's helped him. And I think the problem for the Democrats is they're now in the boy who cried wolf dilemma. So why would anybody listen to what they say now, other than, hardcore anti-Trump, orange man bad NPCs? Nobody's going to listen. Nobody cares anymore. And 5, the opponent matters. Yeah, I don't see a strong opponent out of any of the candidates, and the party's too divided anyway. So, anyway, thank you, Victor Davis Hanson. Another great article. I enjoyed going through that with you. Please subscribe because the algorithm doesn't want you to see independent analysis like this. It wants you to see the big corporate stuff like CNN. So please subscribe if you want to see more because their algorithm's not going to show it to you. If you don't have time to watch my videos, you can listen to the podcast, Radio Baloney. It's on every platform: Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Spreaker, Spotify, everything. It's out there. Check it out. You can find it, Radio Baloney. Thanks very much. I will see you next time.